forward to hearing about your leadership journey and having a subsequent interactive sessions with you. May I now kindly request you on the stage and take us through your journey and your valuable thoughts with all of us. Thank you.
So, Sumit, I really don't want to say thank you for that long introduction, but thank you. Sampada, and most importantly, your chairperson, which is really the reason why I'm here today. She and Jessel are old friends and very difficult to say no to two people who I have a very high regard for and who I've seen in their many incarnations, in fact least of all in this, but in terms of what they do, in terms of the environment and the many interests that both of them have outside of what you all represent today, are really what being a whole person is about, the many interests and the passions that drive us. So I'm here with you today basically to share some thoughts on leadership, but in the interaction I certainly don't want to limit the interaction to that. If you have any questions on the economy or anything at all, please be and feel free to fire away. So I thought I'd start actually with a quote from one of my favorites, which is George Bernard Shaw. And what he said was, some men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not. Now clearly the operative word here to my mind is men, right? Because women always knew the answer. So for the women in the audience, it's great to have you here with us. Can you hear me at the back? There may be a bit of an echo. Is that okay at the back? Yeah. For the women in the audience, you should know that your place in life is very, very important. Make sure the men know that as well. Now on a more serious note, there are, I think, times in our management, in terms of the way we run companies, when we have to recognize that these are turbulent times. And we're in such a stage today where there's nothing that is a constant. Things are continuously changing and we have to be ready to change with it, because the only thing permanent is change. So how do we develop a way, a management style, a leadership style which recognizes that there is no permanence to what we do? And in doing that, continue to adapt, to adopt, to change. And you have to continuously, therefore, as an individual, push yourself. You push yourself, you push your team, you push the organization, because you have to continuously think and plan for the future. So in doing that, I think there is another underwriting sort of principle which I would look to in terms of the people who you hire, the people you work with, the people you pick for your team, and that is to be passionate about what you do. How are you always passionate about what you do, and how do you ensure that the people around you bring that same passion? Because success, to my mind, is not the result of just a spontaneous process in itself. You have to be someone who sets yourself on fire every day. And if you can't do that, you don't imbue that fire into the team that works with you, the team that would follow you to the end of the world and off the cliff if necessary. So working with that passion, it could be a passion for excellence, a passion to ensure that you reach certain goals, but that passion is key as you step out into every day of what is your duty. So this brings me to another great, Martin Luther King, who said, "The ultimate challenge of man and convenience, but where he stands as time of challenge and controversy." So at the heart of this principle is, what do you learn from failure? You are not going to succeed all the time, but what you learn from failure really is what gets you to the next grade. And fail you will from time to time, but how you handle that failure, how you tolerate failure in your team becomes an important way of advancing the organization, advancing your team, advancing yourself. So how you as an individual pick yourself up from where you fell down to start again becomes another way of looking at it. And I like to tell a little story here. It's the story of a donkey. Now, this particular donkey in a village has fallen into a well. The village is now at its wit's end how to get it out of the well, because it's stuck down there and it's making the most horrible noise 24 hours as nobody knows how to hoist it out of the well. And indeed, while it's stuck in there, nobody's getting any sleep. So this village at its wit's end, wondering what to do, how to cope with this problem, suddenly finds things fall quiet. And they figure, well, maybe the donkey's just dead, maybe we've got at least a resolution to the noise. We still have to get this donkey out of the well, but let's at least get a good night's sleep. And so next morning, they look down into the well, and there's a remarkable thing that they observe. The donkey is basically using the dirt that they had been shoveling onto the donkey to try and bury him so that he would just be finished there and then, has used this to climb up higher and higher in the well. And for every clump of dirt that landed on it, he just shook it off and then used that as the next building stone to climb up out of the well. And before long, he's out of the well through his own effort. And the lesson from this donkey really is, you will always have people who are shoveling dirt on you through life, right? The secret has to be that you shake that dirt off and use it as a stepping stone to the next stage, so that at every point that you believe you have failed, or you believe that you are sinking, or you believe there is a problem, you use that as a way of stepping up to the next phase of your growth. And I think it is exactly this that becomes important to figure out as you go. I think another principle I like to leave with you today is about respect. You have to be able to respect yourself, first and foremost. And that respect comes from many facets of the way you engage with other people. Unless you don't respect yourself, you forget to respect those around you. And this is not just about respect for age, it is respect for diversity, respect for the men and women who work with you, respect for people who may have very different abilities around you, respect for people who come from all walks of life. And through this respect, you indeed engender a very different team and team spirit. So if you look at the respect for yourself, the world clearly rewards you for your successes. Success requires no explanation. Failure actually permits none. So what you need to do is, by respecting yourself, what you get is a certain self-confidence that carries you through the periods where you are not successful, that carries you through the periods where people are indeed aiming the dirt at you. And then you find that through that respect for yourself, your self-confidence, that indeed becomes the way you succeed. Because if you succeed 90% of the time, you are doing fine. What I'm really saying here is you will fail. And it is the way you handle those failures, not just the learning from lessons like the donkey did, but also making sure that in the lessons that you learn, you are able to ask yourself if you are taking enough risks as well. Because you would find, and this is very true in my world of banking, it is somebody who is correct 100% of the time on their lending decisions, on the way you extend credit, is likely to be someone who is not taking sufficient risk. You need to have a little bit there that allows you to go wrong. And I think we are at a point in our own country's history where our tolerance for things that go wrong, particularly we've seen, say, at the government and policy level, leads to all kinds of actions where the decision maker today is one that is not likely to take a decision at all in the desire to be right 100% of the time, in the fear of a CAG or a CVC and others, as we find in the case of bureaucrats. And in our organizations, we don't want that. We want the decision making. We understand it won't be right 100% of the time, but as long as it is not modified, it's taken with the right level of really exploring all the various options. It turns out wrong in hindsight. It's not a reason for someone to be really nailed to the coffin and asked to leave. So you have to know that you will be successful most of the time, but there must be a tolerance, both you in yourself and of your team, when you are not so successful. I think another learning I'd like to share with you is it's so important to surround ourselves with people who are positive. If you have people around you who are always naysayers or negative, you begin to find that that permeates the rest of the team. It permeates the atmosphere in the organization. So, in fact, many of us as companies now do tests of people in terms of their personality before they join in order to determine these sort of traits. The inherent self-confidence of an individual, the ability of someone to have a very positive outlook in situations where that positivity then permeates the team. And I think it's so easy to be a cynic who knows all the reasons why something cannot be done. Why instead of spending time with people who have a can-do approach, you soon become one of those people who thinks of all the reasons why something is not going to happen. And therefore we should choose our advisors, our mentors, our team very well as we go forward. I think another point I'd like to leave with you is it's important to play to win. And what I mean by this is that if you don't have a spirit of some degree of competitiveness, it should be healthy competition, with the desire to win, then it's easy to allow others to walk all over you, easy to allow competition to move ahead. And therefore, playing to win is not just the same as cutting corners. It's about ensuring you play by the rules, you play to win, you carry your team with you, that you stretch yourself in the process so that you are working to your maximum ability at all times and therefore are able to concentrate your energy in a way that allows you to move ahead. And I think that balance becomes very important because we have many who will play to win, but will play in a way that is not ethical, will play maybe in a way which cuts corners. But this playing to win, but doing it while maintaining the highest standards of integrity, of ethics, is, I think, a very important balance, but very key to have that ambition and that desire to win at the end of it. So I often get asked, and many of you, in fact all of you, are leaders of a very important part of your organization. And the question really is, so then what is leadership? So often people will say, well, what is the difference between being a leader and a manager? Yes, so leaders are different to being a manager. A manager is strong in execution. A leader has vision. A leader has the desire, the ability to carry a team. But I want to leave you with some thoughts which are a little broader than just that. And that is, think of leadership as, in particularly these kinds of challenge, of change, as a way to create a sense of innovation and creativity in an organization, to be able to think out of the box. Think of a leader as someone with knowledge and intellect. Think of a leader as someone who can build a new world, a better tomorrow. And then what is the critical factor which enables this? And truly leadership is, to my mind, that one quality that drives effective management. Managers we all are, but a good leader drives us to be effective managers. There's no one solution, to my mind. There's no one tool. In fact, people like Jack Welch, who've written books on management and run one of the largest companies in the world, GE, his own leadership style evolved. If you look at the way he first ran GE, it was very autocratic, hierarchical, and the GE he finally left behind, a flatter, much more participative organization. And his own sharing of that evolution tells you that there is no one leadership style that works for all situations. And there's no one leadership style that works over a period of time. You always need different leadership styles for different situations. Some where you're very much in charge, you are the person who is leading. In others where you are much more participative. And yet others where you are leading from behind. You're letting others take the lead, but you're in fact making sure that you're pushing everyone in the right direction. And there's no one leadership style that is right or wrong. The ideal leader should have all of these, like many quivers, many arrows, with which you are then able to fire your particular mission. And I think as you do that, you learn that you have to work in various ways with your team, and different people in your team need different leadership styles too. So it is really very, very complex to my mind. So what is leadership? It's not a product. It definitely isn't something which lasts for 6 months. It's not a process. If it was a process, it would last 18 months to 2 years. It's not about who makes the most noise, because we know empty vessels make the most noise. So really, it is a philosophy for a lifetime, and embedded in it, if you begin to look at the adjectives which should fire what is good leadership, it's integrity, it's being fair, it's listening, it's treating everyone the same, with the same amount of respect. It's really about your style. So no one style, to my mind, is right or wrong. And ultimately, it is about being yourself. It is about clarity and vision. It is about taking risks. It is about application and determination. So many adjectives that fill that one good leader. And you have to define this for yourself. So you have to first come to terms with yourself. If you're insecure, that insecurity is going to reflect in the way you are not able to lead others around you. And this brings me to a very important aspect of the organization that succeeds today, and it is about team play. And I say this time and time again, but I'm also very struck by how often an organization does not enable this team play. The team play is not just about the way you work within your own team. That is sometimes the easiest. It is about the way all the silos that we create in our organization work together. How do you break those silos? How do you work beyond your own spaces and make sure that you collaborate, that you allow people in one part of an organization to work with the other without feeling that they are in any way being watched, that it isn't right. And believe me, I have run now 3 different organizations, all that practice some of the global best practices. But to my mind, this is one of the toughest, particularly when you're in a multi-product, multi-vertical organization such as yours. And bringing this team play into place is not the job of HR alone. HR facilitates. It is the job of every one of you. Because if you don't do it, there is no way that the people who work with you do it. HR can facilitate, but HR will never be able to achieve what you have to set out to achieve in this process. And if you look at why we need to do it, say any one of us does not have, I would say, even 50% of the skills we need to succeed in the job that we do. I am good at some things, but I know very well the number of things that I am by no means the best person I know. And if I don't recognize what I don't know, then I am failing myself. In recognizing what I don't know, I have the ability to pick people around me who can fill those gaps. And then, if I can make everybody work to their full potential, I can achieve what I can never do on my own. And this is easier said than done, but believe me, I know this is the only way. The times when we have not been able to solve a problem in the companies I have worked with is when the team didn't hang together, when individual egos got in the way, when fiefdoms became more important than the ultimate success of the outcome. And what you get as a result is suboptimal. And you never get to that end result. In fact, often you fail along the way. And it is therefore important to make sure that this spirit of team plays every way possible. And in order to play, you also need diversity in the team. And I don't just mean gender diversity. Gender diversity is very important. But it's diversity of thinking, diversity of skills, so that different viewpoints, each given the same amount of respect, actually are evident in the way the top team is constructed and the way the top team works. So let me now end with one or two last thoughts, and that is that in spite of all that keeps changing around us, there are some things that cannot change. And one of the most important there is values. The values that we as individuals hold dearest to us, the values that the organization wants us to adhere to, are the values which we must embrace. And those things don't change, because you don't become a person with the highest levels of integrity to someone whose levels of integrity are different. You end up with having that the things that you hold close to you, doing the right thing, having the right values, the respect that you have for others, are things that must stay constant no matter how the organization changes around you. And frankly, there are times when organizations like ours right now go through values training. We actually put our people through a training to remind them as to the values that are important to the organization, which we would like them to hold nearest and dearest to their heart in the way they work and the way they engage. And at the core of that is also therefore the way we as individuals, we as organizations engage with society around us. What do we do with the communities we serve? How are we perceived in the communities we work in? Do we promote the environment, or do we share the goodness that we can spread? And it isn't just about CSR. CSR is important. It's also about the way we as individuals engage with those around us at every level. And I'll maybe share with you a little story here, which is quite an interesting story, how reward can come your way if you follow these sort of principles. And it's the story of a poor Scottish farmer. It's quite important we look at the Scots today because they may be cast out of the UK by their own choice. So this Scottish farmer, whose name was Fleming, one day he was trying to make a meager sort of living with his family. He heard a cry for help coming from the marsh nearby. So he dropped his tools, he goes running there, he finds a young boy terrified in a swamp and getting further sucked into the sinking mud, where he is now up to his waist already in this black mud. And this farmer, at some risk to himself, saved the boy from what could have been a pretty horrible death. The next day, a very fancy carriage draws up to the farmer's home, and we have an interchange where this elegantly dressed nobleman steps out, introduces himself as the father of the boy who was saved, and said, "I want to repay you." And the farmer says, "I don't need repayment. I did this because it was the right thing to do." And the farmer is in fact someone who then says, "Let me take from you at least a promise that you will not forget this incident and do good for wherever you are." So the nobleman goes away with this little lesson, but says and commits to do one thing, which is, "Let me make you a deal that your son will at least get the best education which the country can give him." And to this, the farmer, of course, could not say no, and so this young boy, the farmer's son, gets exactly that, the best education. In time, Farmer Fleming's son graduated from one of the best schools in England, St. Mary's Hospital Medical School in London, went on to become known throughout the world as the noted Sir Alexander Fleming, who, as some of you will remember, discovered penicillin. And years afterwards, the nobleman's son was stricken with pneumonia. And what saved that boy was penicillin. So you see how a good deed can sometimes come back in your lifetime, but if not, at least in the next, to reward you. And I think it is these sort of principles which we must remember as things which ultimately help the brand of the organization, but also you as individuals, each one of us, in terms of the way we engage with society around us. So I'd like to end now with just what I call the ABCD of basically leadership. The A stands for ability, where clearly you have to be able, but with one word of caution. And there's an old shloka which is Maha Stavira Sangarakshita. And what this means is to know what we do not know is the beginning of wisdom. So yes, have ability, but in having that ability, recognize what we do not know. And therefore, we have to embark on a continuous process of learning. You never stop learning. What I learned at Harvard Business School in 1982 was irrelevant by 1987 in terms of the actual principles. But what it teaches you is to continuously learn and how to learn. And that never goes away. The B is about balance. In fact, Churchill once said, success is going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. So again, it is ultimately about maintaining your balance when you fail, getting up and making sure you take those lessons with you. The C is about confidence. And that is really the belief in yourself that you can do it. And in fact, there is a saying which goes, the height of your accomplishments will equal the depth of your convictions. You are convinced you can achieve, and then you achieve. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. This has indeed been a great moment for us. A great opportunity for all of us to hear Mrs. Kidwai address to us not just her own journey right from the Dubai days, but to the politics, to the nation, to the kind of policies that we need to change. I think it's been great hearing for all of us. So on behalf of all of us here at Anand Group, thanks a lot for having spent that kind of precious time, your 1 hour here, and interacting with the seniors of our group. As a token of our gratitude, may I request Mr. Singh to share the memento with you, a memento made specially for you as part of Season 3. Of your wildlife and your adventurous passion that you have. Good afternoon, everyone. I think Sampada has started this wonderful new initiative of the Seniors League. It took a little bit convincing to get Naina to come, but thank you very much, sincerely, particularly from me, since I know I harassed you a little bit to come. It has been, for me, truly a joyous 1 hour, and I use the word joyous because so many things that Naina touched upon today are already values that we uphold at Anand. Success and failure, how you deal with both, is not something we talk so much about. We talk more at Anand about the journey. The journey at Anand through 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So many people amongst us have had lifetime achievement awards, and I hope there will be many that continue to. The main thing that I think we can take away from this 1 hour today is the fact that there are successes and failures. It's how we deal with them that will either make us a good manager or a leader. Not all of us may think that we have the skills to be a leader. But I think the fact that all of you are here today is because we at least believe that a lot of you, a large proportion of you, have those skills. It's how you hone them in. Every time, as she says, you have a success or a failure, how you deal with it. But secondly, how you align yourself to the company's goals and to the goals that your visionary leaders see, whether that be the person who formed this country or your CEO today, that actually embodies a lot of values she talked about. Uniting people, talking about partnership. Our entire business model is based on partnership. And it's interesting that she spent so much time on partnering today. And it's also interesting she spent so much time on team building today. Because I think the quality of time that goes in our senior management is on team building and is on people development. All of those things are clearly at the core of what she believes defines a good company and good practice. I noticed 1 or 2 people asking about, if you take risks, is that going to cause you damage in your career? What happens if the team is not aligned to each other? Interestingly, I spent most of my morning on these 2 issues today with some individuals in this room. I have no doubt that if teams are not aligned and if people don't work as a united force, the company cannot achieve either its short-term goals or its long-term goals. Successes in the short term and visions, changes, keeping with the times in the long term. It is just not possible. Some of you are star performers and you will shine. But if you don't turn into managers that can carry your teams, as she said, we just will not have enough leaders to carry the whole organization. And we're still only 15,000 people. I hope today, as she said, that our new government can do better with forming coalitions and partnerships to carry the country forward, because that's what we really all need to grow. But thank you, Naina, for coming here today and giving us some words of wisdom on what you've seen in your various avatars. Just one question that young lady asked about Naina doing many things. Just to answer that question, if you are not diverse in your interests, you cannot possibly see what all that life has to offer. A desk job is simply not good enough to grow yourself as an individual. And I think women have a unique position in this. Because as a wife, as a mother, as a contributing member of society, which I think women inherently are, they are exposed to a plethora of things. In fact, you must never limit yourself. You must read about different subjects and participate in different gatherings. If you don't, then you're limiting yourself, limiting your scope. The reason why we ask someone as eminent as her to come and speak to us is because she has such a plethora of experience. And I encourage you all to do that going forward.